talking about an article I read called Morphemic Vocabulary Instruction for Middle Grades. And this article made me think about my time abroad when I was in Spain. When I was there, I would read a lot for my teacher, and I knew how to read, I knew what to do to be able to read fluently, and I knew how to pronunciate my words, but I did not know what my words meant. So it didn't really matter that I could read it as fluently as I was. If I didn't understand what the words meant, I didn't understand the context of the passage, as well as I was not comprehending what I was actually reading. And we're actually seeing this in schools today. Our article that I read explains about how schools are really focused on fluency, which is not a bad problem. It's a good thing to make sure your students can read smoothly and at a quick pace. But if student isn't understanding the context or the meaning of the words, the vocabulary comprehension is going to go down drastically, and they're going to struggle with understanding how to relate these things later on because they're not going to understand even what the word means. So the first study had 6 students. 3 of them had learning disabilities and 3 of them did not. So both sides were being shown in this study, and they were given a root word, and they had to decide how they were going to figure out what this root word meant. Now, 5 out of 6 of these students did not understand what a prefix meant, which is going to cause some problems later down the road. So like I said at the beginning, there were 6 students in that first study that just dealt with the root word isolation, and all of their scores increased once they learned this step to help them understand the smallest units of each word and how they relate together. Okay, so in the article, this was the strategy that was given to help a student understand the morphemic vocabulary instruction. And this is step by step what you should do to teach this. So number 1, you're going to tell them to isolate the word. So you're going to have a word and you're going to isolate it from the sentence, the word that you're struggling with. And then you're going to separate the word into smaller parts, and that's called a morpheme, the smallest unit that has meaning instead of a word. So that will be the morpheme. So after you separate it, you're going to find the meaning in the root word. Now that you have separated it, find the root word and know what that means. Then you're going to find the meaning in the affix, which is the prefix or the suffix, the thing that you have detached from the root word. And then finally, you're going to make predictions. You're going to think, what does this affix mean and what does this root word mean? And then you're going to combine them back together to make the whole word, and now you're going to be able to understand what that word means. In this article, they did 2 separate studies. And in the first study, they used this example to help work on the strategy that we had just talked about. So they asked the students to find the word that they were struggling with. That's our first step, which is isolation. So they saw enlarge. There were 6 students and none of them knew what the word enlarge meant. They took the root word, enlarge, and they asked the students to write down what they think that means. And all the students got that right. They knew it meant big. Well, then they asked them to find the affix, which is the prefix in this, in, which was isolated from the root word. In means to make. So now that we think we know what those 2 words mean, we combine them together to go back to the original word and say, now we know the definition of enlarge means to make big. So this is the strategy that the article talks about. Now, in the study, they found that most students did not know what prefix meant. And because of this, they were not able to separate the root word from the prefix because they didn't know that in was a prefix. So that is a problem that we're having across the schools, is that a prefix, affix, suffix, those words are not being used, that vocabulary is not. So that needs to be stabilized in the student's mind before we go ahead and do this instruction strategy. The second example that was given to this first study of 6 children was the word foresight, and they were asked to use the strategy that we just worked out together to know what that word meant. So they were supposed to combine and find that sight is a root word, and sight means vision, and a synonym for for is before, and putting that together it would be before vision, before sight, or foresight. Now the problem was, like I said, that students did not know what a prefix was, so they did not even know what for meant. They didn't know that the prefix for could mean a synonym of before. So that's a problem that they saw throughout the study. All 6 children dramatically increase in their fluency as well as their understanding of vocabulary instruction and their comprehension, but they also found in this study that many children did not know what a prefix, affix, or suffix was, which caused problems with this instruction strategy. The purpose of study 2 was to replicate study 1 with additional instruction and sentence structure to help older middle grade students with or without learning disabilities. So the second study was older 8th grade students who still had the learning disability, and now these are open-ended questions that they're practicing this strategy on. The second study uses an example for the students that says, Jenny needed to buy clothes for sub-zero conditions. What kind of clothes does Jenny need to buy? Now, some of the students got that question right because they did isolate the words they did not know and go through the step-by-step process we talked about. Some students did not understand what a root word was, and that was a problem that occurred throughout the entire article. Students not understanding the vocabulary words for root words, affix, suffix, or prefix. So one girl's response was, she should buy under nothing clothes. This proves that the student does not understand the root word. Student B said, Jenny needs to buy warm coats and pants. It is evident that that student understood what the context meant. In the second study, only 5 out of the 10 students increased in their scores of reading comprehension. And when looking at the results, the 5 that did not score high did not separate their words, did not do the step-by-step process that we learned about earlier. In both studies, students with disabilities and without disabilities were represented, and in all the studies, students increased on their scores dramatically. This study proved that root word training is very important and prominent in learning vocabulary instruction and comprehension. As well as in both studies, students did improve in their scores, which proves that this strategy is helpful. It also is helpful for students that really need a step-by-step process to tell them what to do, and this works every time. As well as it proves that vocabulary does lead to reading comprehension. If you increase your vocabulary, your reading comprehension will increase as well. The average student's test score increased with this strategy. This also provides an individual strategy that students are able to use when a teacher is not around to help. This article explained how there's a variety of ways to teach about reading comprehension and morphemic vocabulary instruction. There's not a set way that you have to teach your children or classroom, but this is a step-by-step process that helps those students that need a 1, 2, 3 on their paper to understand how to find out what the definition of the word is. This is a perfect example of word analysis and helps many students with or without learning disabilities in middle grade schools.